your motivation can degrade. And if nobody pushing you to come back and do it all the time, you're going to have a much bigger damage to yourself by removing yourself from being consistent. If I committed to this, let's stay there and be as consistent as possible.
Most hosts never achieve the results they hoped for. They're falling short on listenership and monetization, meaning their message isn't being heard and their show ends up costing them money. This podcast was created to help you grow your listenership and make money while you're at it. Get ready to take notes. Here's your host, Adam Adams.
Hey, podcaster, it's your host, Adam Adams. And today I am joined with Evgeniy Kharam, who has actually got 3 podcasts. We're going to talk about a couple things. One of the things is if you are nervous to have a podcast, if you're scared to have a show, if you already have a show, but sometimes you just don't feel completely comfortable having your podcast or recording an episode, you're probably going to learn a couple of things that he's learned along the way. And then after that, we will talk a little bit about the consistency of your podcast. A lot of people understand that you should be consistent, but we've got a story today to be able to share with you on what happens to your podcast in a bad way this moment that you stop being consistent. So with that said, let's jump in. Hey, I've got a question for you. You have been podcasting for a while. I think you've got 3 podcasts. One of them's really new. One of them's a couple of years old. And the other one, I think, has even been around longer than that. What made you decide to have a podcast? I know you are going to talk about how you were afraid or scared or something, but why did you end up wanting to do it anyway?
Hey, so first of all, thank you very much. I'm happy to be on the show and I'm happy to share what I learned. And I really hope it's going to help other people to start their journey or potentially improve their journey. I always was a passionate person and had a lot of ideas. My main job is cybersecurity consulting. And I did a lot of architecture work in cybersecurity in my life. And I was kind of always thinking, ooh, I wish people will not do that. Ooh, I wish people will do that. Ooh, I wish people will have a different direction. And I was listening to many different podcasts about photography, about technology, about cybersecurity. I'm like, I can do it as well. Actually, I want to do it as well. But the idea is that, first of all, the moment I record myself, it's going to be publicly available to everyone. And I may do a mistake. I may say something wrong and people will tell me, hey, it's not correct. Or people may not understand me. I'm a second-time immigrant. My English is not perfect. I have an accent. I used to speak quite fast. I used to straddle quite a lot. So there's a lot of what ifs and what will prevent me to do it. So all this was going in my mind. And then I decided, what if I start a podcast almost for myself? I will not care about anything else. And I will do a podcast about a topic that even if somebody will judge me, I will not care at all. So I started to record a podcast about extreme sports. And I just finished a meditation retreat. So this was the first one. I recorded my experience about the meditation retreat. Basically what I did. It was interesting experience to record, interesting experience to edit. I think maybe my family and maybe some friends listened to it. So it was quite interesting. And it removed the fear a bit. Like, okay, I can actually do it. It's not so scary. So let's continue. So I continued to record about mountain biking, about scuba diving, about snowboarding. Did about 5 episodes. Again, I didn't look for traction. I didn't post this anywhere pretty much. And this gave me the first confidence to start. But it was just the beginning. Later on, when I moved on, I realized what was the biggest problem. And the biggest problem, and I'm a techie, is my entire CPU, if you can call it, was focused on being scared. I didn't leave any threads, anything in my CPU for everything else. And I realized that the moment I recorded the podcast for myself, it's actually opened up the CPU to look about other options. And where I'm going with this is we can work with our fears. we can work to understand how we can help each other. And the first part is, I want to do XYZ. I'm passionate about whatever the topic you want to talk about, cooking, breathing, painting, but I'm afraid. So you already understand that part of the solution is you are afraid. So we can now work with the fear. One, think about fear and excitement. They're almost like hate and love, very, very close to each other. With fear, we don't know the outcome. People will hate me. People will tell me my content is bad. People will tell me I don't know what I'm talking about. With excitement, pretty much the same, but we know the outcome. If you take a child, for the one that listen to us and have kids, and put them on a slide, they will be afraid until they go down the slide first time. And then it will change to again, 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 because now they're excited. Now they know the outcome. Where I'm going with this, you can change the mental mode from fear to excitement. I'm not actually scared. I'm excited to start my own podcast. So you can think about this and you see how it's working. But to help you even more and free the CPUs to actually go do the execution,
I want to interrupt you just to get some information on one piece. You have said CPU a few times, and I don't know if I understand that, or maybe the listener might also not know what CPU is supposed to stand for.
Oh, my bad. CPU is central processing unit, is the one that power your laptop and computer.
Okay.
My bad. I'm sorry about this. So this
You're
is the
tech,
main.
You're a tech.
I'm
guy,
a tech.
Not
yes.
Everyone is.
Yes. CPU is the main brain of any laptop, any device, or any phones you have, even the Microsoft. I'm sorry about that.
No, you're good.
And what I was talking about, that in many cases, we are still so focused on being afraid that it's hard for us to free, let's call them a focus point and not CPUs to simplify the stuff. And there's techniques that can help you to lower this fear. Some of them are breathing techniques. Some of them are physical educational techniques or physical exercise. But one of my favorite one called box breathing. I didn't invented this. Navy SEALs using them for a long time. Definitely the yogis using them for a long time as well. And the way it goes is you inhale for 4 or 5 seconds. You hold it for 4 or 5 seconds. Exhale, same 4 or 5 or 3 seconds. Hold and repeat. What's happening is that your breathing cycle right now, if it's a 4 second, it's 16. If it's a 5 second, it's 20 seconds. So you now breathing about 4 to 5 breaths per minute. When the regular breathing for a human being is about 15 to 20. What's going to happen the moment you do box breathing for about 3 to 4 minutes, your heart rate will go down. And the moment your heart rate will go down, your fear and whatever the threat you have will also reduce as well. This is why people that are doing meditation, slowing their breathing, people that are doing free diving, slowing their breathing as well. And this is just one of the techniques. Every time, like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. I'm so scared. Is okay, do box breathing for 2-3 minutes. And if you're not sure, we don't have time to go to all the mechanics, just Google box breathing, do it for 2-3 minutes. If you're not, I'll give you your money back. It doesn't cost you anything for breathing. You will see the difference. And then I hope it will help you to start transition, change the mental mode from fear to excitement and start your podcast as well.
So I want to go back to your first podcast about extreme sports. Will you let me know, is it true that the only reason that you started recording those episodes was to kind of get your feet wet, to kind of get used to podcasting? Or was there a time that you wanted that podcast to grow?
I had no intention to. If it will grow, I will be very surprised. It was basically just to make my feet wet, as you're saying, and try to understand the experience, learn how to upload, learn how to edit, learn how to remove filler words in pros editing, and later on remove for myself in the speech as well. So purely to understand the process and feel comfortable that it's not so hard.
Okay. And one of the things that you have done as a podcast host in order to get over your fear on top of the extreme sports podcast is you've talked to friends, you've talked to family, you've talked to yourself, you've listened to yourself, you've asked for feedback from other people. That can be scary to ask somebody, hey, can you listen to my podcast and tell me everything that I'm doing wrong, everything I need to fix? And so I want to go through that for the listener, somebody else who's going to try to be the best that they can be. How would you coach them to get the right feedback?
I hope you have good friends and you trust your family. If not, change your friends. Sorry. If your friends cannot tell you the truth, then it's a different problem, different podcast, different conversation. But I hope you can go to your friend and say, I'm looking for feedback. Don't slash everything, but give me some pointers. Or what can I improve? Am I too fast? Am I too slow? Am I talking like, hi, hello, today we're you like, something like that.
Okay.
Understand maybe you marathon as a professor. Hi, hello, today we'll talk about mathematics and physics, and I'm going to bore you to death because we're going to not change anything the way I communicate. So there's a lot of things can be changed and the way you're communicating. And honestly enough, one of the parts that helped me, and this is maybe even a better way to do it. If you don't want to go to your friends, if you don't want to go to your family, go to a professional. I went to take singing lessons to improve my voice. And the person I worked with, I have no idea who he was. He got recommended to me. I can tell him F you if I don't like him. And this person helped me so much to understand the issues with my voice. I was missing the middle part. I have a very low voice, but I can have also a pitch. There was nothing almost in the middle. And this was an eye-opening to understand how I communicate and learn my communication style as well. So many different options to go and improve yourself.
And how did you get rid of filler words? You gave an example of filler words. And I've got a lot of friends who podcast. I've got a lot of clients who host podcasts. And or I guess I should say, cutting out filler words is very common for us.
So
go ahead.
This is relatively easy versus with thinking. First of all, I disagree with the people that tell you remove them. It's hard to remove them. I formally believe, and not just me, there is the entire system called Toastmasters, that very, very good system to go and learn and participate, that believe in the idea to replace filler words with pauses. We can say it's easier said than done, but how are we doing that? We need to watch that we have filler words and understand the filler words we have. And this is coming back to my example of CPU or example of focus points. What are we focusing on? If we are so scared to communicate and talk, we will not have enough focus points, CPUs, attention span to look on filler words. We will not have enough focus points to watch on how we communicate, how we say stuff, on the technology we're talking about. Are we using the correct pitch and tone as well? So being relaxed, using the box techniques, the breathing technique or something else to learn how to open up focus points will almost like a chain reaction, will help us to watch our focus point, our filler words, will help us to stop in a second. And instead of saying, we'll actually be able to catch ourselves and do pause. And this way, slowly, we're able to remove majority of them. I spend a lot of time on removing filler words or replacing filler words, but I can tell you when I'm talking on the topic that it's very new to me, or let's say I'm arguing with someone, or I'm deeply involved, I forget. And I don't have enough consideration to watch what I'm talking because I'm so into this conversation. So I'm basically more into it and I forget to relax.
So you focus on relaxing. The box breathing helps. Listening to your own podcast helps. Asking for feedback helps. Going to Toastmasters could help as well. And if that's not us, or if we're not sure if we're going to go to Toastmasters, we can simply try to replace an or an simply with silence.
This is what you're going to learn in Toastmasters. And another part that if you listen to people talking, when you ask them a question, they're going to start with and then answer the question because they need another second or two to come up with what they're going to talk. So they're buying time. But instead of that, instead of doing a sound, if you can simply train yourself to breathe, because the breathing will actually buy you the another 1 or 2 seconds instead of doing and then you can answer. So every time you're answering, before you answer, just take a breath and it will help you.
Is it Steve Jobs that was one of the big founders of Apple?
Yes, he was.
I think I saw a video of him at a university. Somebody asked him a good question and he paused for what felt like 2 minutes straight. I'm not sure if it was actually 2 minutes, but it felt like a long time. And I remember thinking about this and as you're talking about filling it with silence, that's what he did. He filled it with silence. And the truth is, I believe from watching this video, it looked like everybody got closer and closer and closer. As he had that silence, we all wanted to know what he was about to say. And it really, really helped. I think if he said, let me think. Well, if he was filling all these filler words, we wouldn't have listened in. We wouldn't have leaned in. We would have ignored it. We would have said, hey, I don't care what this guy's about to say. I thought that was a good example of what you're sharing.
I think in general, the pause has a lot of traction, not just in filler words. Like think about a joke. If you're saying a joke and you're not waiting for people to engage and you continue talking, that you lost this moment. If you're asking a question, and it's a difficult question, for example, especially in sales, and somebody is not answering and you don't want to wait and you continue talking, you lose this moment. There's a lot of ways how we can use pauses to our advantage in a communication in general. It's a very powerful tool.
Yeah. All very, very good stuff. Is there anything else about being nervous about having a podcast or recording your next episode that we didn't touch on that you might want to share before we go to our next topic?
Since there's many different topics, but we don't have time to go and talk on all of them, I don't want to go to technology. I do want to say that we have a lot of recording applications that can help you to understand your voice and your filler words as well. So not always asking friends and family, not always going to practitioners. You can literally record yourself on the script, YouTube, your phone, and understand, not YouTube, what you can do with there. So right at home, it's become much easier to start a podcast because you don't need to assemble 55 tools, 2-3 tools, even one tool may be enough for you to start.
Great. Let's take a quick break and then let's talk about an issue that happened with one of your podcasts when you stopped being as consistent. We'll be right back. Hey, my friend, as you know, this episode is sponsored by my company, growyourshow.com. We want you to be able to have the best tools at your disposal without costing you a whole arm and a leg. So right now you can get a free list of vetted equipment that like mics, mixers, webcams, sound treatment, editing software, everything that you need. I created the whole PDF with direct purchase links just to save you time and money, to help it be more convenient for you. So this free PDF will help you skip all the guesswork. If it's on there, it's vetted and approved by yours truly. And if it's not on there, it's probably not worth the money. So go ahead and get yours at growyourshow.com/PDF. Let's get back into the show. So far, we've learned a lot of cool stuff in this episode about if you're not feeling completely comfortable to have your podcast or to do that next episode, to do that next recording. There were many tips that we discussed. We talked about the extreme sport podcast that he started for fun. He started to learn. He started to just get his feet wet. We talked about fear and excitement being very similar, just like love and hate. Talked about the first time a kid goes down a slide, they feel fear. And then they just want to keep going and going and going. We talked about CPUs or computer brains. We talked about box breathing. I think that was 4 counts in, 4 counts hold, 4 counts out, 4 counts hold, or 5 seconds, or maybe you could do 6 seconds. So 5, 5, 5, 5. And now we're going to talk a little bit about, and we talked about filler words, filler phrases, pauses, how to get over that, how to ask your friends, your family to not be afraid to have your podcast. Now we want to talk about consistency or lose traction. So I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So this is a very interesting and a bit hard topic for myself as well. And I start with the New Year resolutions, and I explain why. Because in the New Year resolution, we say you're going to lose weight, you're going to do XYZ, stop smoking, whatever it is. And then in many cases, as we all know, we lose traction. And like, I'm going to miss a day, I'm going to miss a day, I'm going to miss a day. And then we sometimes go completely off the track. How is this related to podcasting? If you decided to yourself that you're going to release a podcast every week, few things will happen. And I'm talking about myself. Maybe people different, but this also happened to me. Like, okay, it's going to happen every week. And then you miss 1 week because you're busy at work, because you're busy with kids, because you were somewhere else. Okay, I'm going to do that. And then you miss another week. Like, okay, but I already lost 1 week. You're going to lose another week. Nothing's going to happen. And then suddenly the motivation starts hurting you. And then, okay, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. You're going to do that. You're putting the podcast, and now we're talking about numbers a bit. And then you suddenly see, because in my case, I was publishing majority of my podcasts on LinkedIn, and I will see a spike right away. And then it's slowly going to go down for probably a week until the next episode. I suddenly see a tinier spike, and I see less people, and I'm start reviewing the data, and I'm analyzing that there are data of people subscribing on the phones that went down by about 10 to 15%. The data on people listening on web went by 25%, even more. And then I had a time when I didn't publish anything for almost 3 weeks. The data dropped by almost 35%. And in many cases, when I came back and releasing every week, it didn't come back to the original numbers. It took much, much longer. And it took much longer because new people joined. But some people, again, I don't have exactly the people names, probably didn't stop listening because they moved somewhere else. Because majority of the folks, and me included, we have applications on our phone that tell us about the new episode. So something else happening. So 2 things I'm basically saying. 1, it's hurting you much more because you can lose more people than you expect. 2, in many cases, your motivation can degrade. And if nobody pushing you to come back and do it all the time, you're going to have a much bigger, hurt to yourself, damage to yourself by removing yourself from being consistent. And this is what I changing to myself. Okay, if I committed to this, let's stay there and be as consistent as possible. Maybe not to have every week, maybe every 2 weeks, but if it's every 2 weeks, it's every 2 weeks.
A lot of great points. I'm gonna go into some things that I think I heard you say. So you missed an episode. You were going weekly, and you just missed one, and you literally saw your podcast analytics go down. Another time, you might have missed 2 episodes, and the podcast analytics go even more down. You're seeing it both on what people are subscribed to on the phones and what people are listening to on their computers. You're seeing those go down 10, 20, 30% just from 1, 2, 3 weeks of not publishing an episode. And I think that's something that the listener should be considering. Hey, let's just say I've only got 100 people listening. Now I only have 90. I just lost 10 people. Now, if you have 10,000 people listening, this is a much bigger loss for you. If you've only got 100, you've still just lost 10 people. And what happens in my mind when you lose 10 people, you were a good host. You knew what that person needed. You were giving it to them. And now 10% of them, 20, 30% of them just went to the other podcast. You can no longer be the good podcast that helps them get the value that they need. That means you're not giving a legacy anymore. You're not making it, you're not inspiring others as much anymore. And if your podcast is a business, or if it's part of your business, now you're losing revenue because those 10%, 20%, 30% of the people that trusted you are no longer listening. That also means they're not going to buy. And we also talked about if you start to miss episodes, it's easier to miss episodes. And I had 2 quick examples. If you stop working out at the gym, your muscles get smaller, your fat gets bigger. That's muscle atrophy. You're not using it, so you lose it. If you're not focused on publishing an episode every week, for example, your muscle, the strongness for you to publish every week just gets weaker. Your muscle atrophies and you don't have the motivation, the drive, the strength that you used to have. I tell my kids, if you are afraid to get in front of a room to say something, just whatever the fear is, you're afraid to get in front of a room and talk. You're afraid to ask your dad if you can have ice cream because you think he'll say no. Whatever that is. When you don't ask the question, you strengthen the muscle of not asking questions. When you do ask that question, you strengthen the muscle of getting out of your comfort zone and going to the next step. Now, I think that this might be a theory of relativity, or there's something about the object in motion staying in motion. If you're on top of it, if you continue to stay doing your podcast or going to the gym or whatever it is for you, then it's easier to keep going. But the moment that you take a break from the gym, from working, from your spouse, from your podcast, the moment that you take a break, you're no longer in motion. And now it gets much harder to get back to motion. There's 2 main things that happen. If you stop publishing, you let down your listener, but the other additional thing is you let down the podcast players. They have a built-in algorithm that says, hey, if this person's publishing regularly every week for a long time, we put them to a higher status so people can find them. When you are posting at random every week, every 3 weeks, every month, you take Christmas, New Year's, and other holidays off, then the podcast player says, this person's not serious. I have no motivation to put this podcast in front of anyone else because I'm not going to be able to keep people on the platform if I put his or her podcast in front of other people. Is there anything you want to share about publishing regularly to not lose status, to not lose credibility, to not lose momentum?
Yeah, a couple of things. So thank you for the summary. I think it was a very good summary as well. And I think you captured this from a bit different perspective. So it's really, really, really good. The part I want to add is having a co-host that can drive you. One can help. It doesn't mean you have to. Or you can have a virtual co-host. What I mean by this is someone that basically almost like a responsible to kind of give you a carrot or the stick, whatever works for you, to remind you, hey, Evgeny, hey, Adam, where's the episode? When is the next come out? What's the next topic? Who did you invite? So you almost have like an auditor or somebody that's asking you and guiding you. This could be anyone. This could be your spouse. This could be your friend. This could be your mom. This could be your dad. This could be somebody completely random when you pay them $5 to do it, but basically going to make you feel accountable to do the work.
We kind of do that for clients. A lot of clients, they're months ahead. They've got podcast episodes recorded. They've got a bank account sitting there. And a couple clients will have to hound them. Hey, we don't have a podcast episode for next week. When can you get that? When can you get that? And so they definitely need that stick. Some people need the carrot. Some people need the stick. But that, regardless, if you're hiring somebody, giving them $5, or it's the company that edits your podcast, or like Evgeniy said, your spouse, a friend, a business partner, having a co-host that's actually on the show, that accountability can help, or having I guess he said a virtual co-host, which is somebody who is going to hold you accountable, even if their voice isn't on the podcast. Lots of good stuff in this episode, and the next episode's got lots of good stuff as well. So don't go away. Stick right here. The next episode is ready for you. All of Evgeniy's information, his podcasts, he's got 3 of them, his website, any social media that he wanted you to have is already down in the show notes. Scroll down now and connect with him. I'll see you on the next episode.
I really don't say this nearly enough. I don't mention this, and I feel horrible because it's a great resource for you to be able to take your podcast to the next level. And it's simply a free resource that I don't need your email or anything. It's just a podcasting course that I created that is ended up putting in the very first 6 episodes of this podcast. So if you haven't checked it out, definitely going to want to just check out those first 6 episodes, see how they can help you improve your podcast, get in front of more people, and have a better result where you're making more money through the podcast, etc. So much can happen after you listen through episodes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So if you haven't done it, go do it now. And by the way, if you're subscribed, you'll keep hearing more great content. So to those of you who are, I'll see you on the next episode.